The crunch of gravel beneath my tires felt different today. Something was off. My silver SUV rounded the last bend of Maple Ridge Road, revealing what should have been my family's farm. Except it wasn't my farm anymore. A massive concrete structure rose from what used to be our golden wheat fields, its windows gleaming like 1,000 watchful eyes. I pulled over, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The farm I'd known my entire life had vanished. Where we once swayed in the breeze, now stood a 3-story hotel with pristine landscaping, manicured lawns, and a sprawling parking lot. Bright yellow construction barriers surrounded the property, and workers in hard hats moved about like busy ants. My mind raced. How could this happen? I'd only been gone for a month, a critical consulting job in Singapore that my family desperately needed. My wife, Claire, and I had discussed every detail before I left. We'd secured everything. Or so we thought. The farm had been in my family for 4 generations. Each acre was sacred, carefully maintained, and passed down with pride. A construction worker noticed me and approached, clipboard tucked under his arm. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone polite but wary. I stepped out of the car, my legs feeling like rubber. "This is my family's land," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm Daniel Carter." The worker shifted uncomfortably. "Oh, you're the owner," he said, seeming unsure how to proceed. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Daniel, emergency. Call me ASAP." But my eyes were fixed on the hotel rising from my farmland like an alien structure. I walked closer, my boots crunching on what used to be fertile soil. Each step felt like a violation. The hotel wasn't just a building. It was a statement, a massive concrete declaration that someone believed they could simply take what wasn't theirs. Near the construction entrance, a large sign caught my attention: Willowbrook Community Development. Approved by HOA Board. The name Evelyn Harper was prominently displayed as the project director. My mind began connecting the dots. Evelyn, the HOA president who'd always viewed our farm as an inconvenience. The woman who'd complained about our unkempt boundaries, who'd sent endless letters about grass height and fence regulations. She'd always wanted our land. But this was beyond anything I'd imagined. A stack of papers lay on a nearby table. Curiosity pulled me closer. Construction permits, zoning documents, approval stamps. Each page told a piece of a story I was desperate to understand. One document particularly caught my eye, a small notation about community improvement zones. The language felt off, not illegal, perhaps, but definitely calculated. The construction worker watched me nervously. "Sir, you can't be here," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I turned, offering a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I'll be leaving soon." Driving back into town, my mind whirled with questions. How long had this been planned? What legal maneuvers had Evelyn used? And most importantly, how could I prove this was wrong? Claire's text message remained unanswered. I needed to gather information to understand exactly what had happened while I was gone. This wasn't just about a piece of land. This was about justice, about preserving a legacy. At a local coffee shop, I started making notes, dates, observations, questions. Each scribbled line was a step toward understanding the complex puzzle before me. The farm wasn't just land. It was our history, our future. The waitress refilled my coffee. "Rough day?" she asked. I looked up, a determined smile forming. "Just getting started." Little did Evelyn know, I was about to fight back. And I would fight smart. The dusty file cabinet in my barn held more secrets than I'd ever imagined. Sunlight filtered through the wooden slats, catching specks of dust as I carefully pulled out a stack of yellowed documents my grandfather had meticulously preserved. My fingers traced the edges of old property maps, each crease telling a story of our family's connection to this land. I spread the documents across the workbench, sorting through decades of paperwork. Most people would have thrown these away years ago, but something always told me to keep them. My grandfather was a careful man, always preparing for the unexpected. Now, those preparations might be my only hope. The first document was a hand-drawn property map from 1952. Intricate pencil lines marked the exact boundaries of our farm, with notes scribbled in the margins. I remembered my grandfather telling me stories about how he fought to keep this land during tough times. "Knowledge is your best weapon," he'd always say, his weathered hands pointing to these very documents. As I examined the papers, a pattern began to emerge. The homeowners association hadn't just appeared out of nowhere. They'd been slowly chipping away at individual property rights for years. I found old meeting minutes, correspondence, and legal notices that painted a clearer picture of Evelyn Harper and her long-standing ambitions. A faded yellow envelope caught my eye. Inside, a series of letters detailed a property dispute from decades ago. The HOA had tried the same tactic before, claiming abandoned or underused land for community development. But someone had stopped them then, and those documents showed exactly how. I pulled out my phone and began taking careful photographs of each document. My hands were steady, but my mind raced. Each page was a potential piece of the puzzle. Claire would help me organize these later. She had a knack for seeing connections I might miss. The barn suddenly felt different. These weren't just old papers anymore. They were evidence, weapons in a fight I hadn't asked for but was now determined to win. A noise outside made me pause. The crunch of gravel told me someone was approaching. I quickly gathered the documents, my heart racing. Through the barn's small window, I saw a white SUV with HOA parking stickers pulling up to the property line. Evelyn Harper stepped out, her designer sunglasses reflecting the midday sun. She walked with the confidence of someone who believed she owned everything she saw. I watched silently, knowing she couldn't see me in the shadowy interior of the barn. She pulled out a clipboard, making notes and looking around like she was taking inventory of my land. Her expensive heels sank slightly into the soft ground where my wheat had grown just weeks ago. I could see the hotel construction in the background, a monstrous concrete structure that looked completely out of place in this rural landscape. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, my lawyer, found something interesting. Call me ASAP. The community center felt like a battlefield as I walked through its double doors. Stacks of carefully organized documents filled my leather briefcase, each page a weapon in the fight for my family's land. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the room packed with HOA board members and curious community residents. Evelyn Harper sat at the head of the long wooden table, her perfectly pressed blazer and carefully styled hair screaming of calculated control. She'd always been the type who believed rules were something she could bend, not follow. I'd like to discuss the recent development on my family's farmland. I began, my voice calm and steady. The room fell silent. Whispers died instantly, replaced by an electric tension that you could almost touch. I spread out the first set of documents, old property maps dating back to my grandfather's time, each one meticulously preserved and notarized. The maps showed clear boundary lines, easements, and historical land use agreements that predated the HOA's existence by decades. Evelyn's eyebrow twitched, just a millimeter, but I caught it. That tiny movement told me everything. She knew she was sitting on shaky ground. As the meeting progressed, I noticed a shift. Board members who had initially looked dismissive now appeared concerned. Martha Thompson, a longtime resident, leaned forward, her expression changing from curiosity to genuine concern. "Could you explain the environmental concerns?" she asked. I walked her through the technical details, breaking down complex concepts into simple language. My goal wasn't to confuse, but to educate. The room listened, truly listened. Evelyn's face was a storm of emotions: anger, fear, desperation. She knew I wasn't just challenging the hotel's construction. I was exposing a pattern of systematic overreach. "You can't just take land," I said quietly. "This isn't just about a hotel. This is about respecting property rights, family legacy, and community trust." The courtroom was packed on the day of the final hearing. Months of preparation had led to this moment. Marcus, my lawyer, stood beside me, his confidence unwavering. Evelyn sat across the room, her composure beginning to crack as Marcus presented evidence of environmental violations, backdoor dealings, and systematic abuse of power. The judge's verdict was clear: the hotel construction was illegal, and the HOA had overstepped its authority. The land was to be returned to my family, and Evelyn Harper was ordered to step down as HOA president. As I walked back to my farm, the weight of victory settled over me. The fight had been long and grueling, but it was worth it. The farm wasn't just land. It was a legacy, a testament to the resilience of those who refused to back down in the face of injustice. The hotel was demolished, and the land began to heal. Wheat once again swayed in the breeze, and the farm returned to its former glory. The community, once divided, came together to support us. Evelyn Harper faded into obscurity, her empire of control crumbling under the weight of truth. As I stood on the porch of my farmhouse, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace. The fight had been hard, but it had been worth it. The farm was more than just land. It was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even the smallest voices can make a difference when they stand together. And as the first stars appeared in the night sky, I knew that my grandfather would be proud. The legacy he had fought so hard to protect would live on, not just in the land, but in the hearts of those who dared to stand up for what was right. A week after the court ruling, I received a letter from an anonymous sender. The envelope was plain, with no return address, but the contents were anything but ordinary. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. "You think you've won, but the game isn't over. Watch your back." Claire found me in the kitchen, staring at the letter. "What is it?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. I handed her the note. Her eyes scanned the words, and she frowned. "Do you think it's from Evelyn?" "Maybe," I said. "Or someone else who's not happy about what happened." The next day, strange things started happening around the farm. Tools went missing, fences were cut, and one morning, we found the words "back off" spray painted on the side of the barn. It was clear that someone was trying to intimidate us, but I wasn't about to back down. As I was repairing the damaged fence, a familiar voice called out from the driveway. "Need a hand with that?" I turned to see Marcus Thompson, my lawyer and now a close friend, walking toward me. He had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a determined look on his face. "Marcus," I said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I heard about the vandalism," he said, setting the bag down. "Thought you could use some backup." I smiled, grateful for his support. Marcus had been instrumental in our legal battle, and his presence now was a reminder that we weren't alone in this fight. Over coffee in the kitchen, Marcus and I discussed the recent events. "This isn't just random vandalism," he said. "Someone's trying to send a message." "I know," I replied. "But who?" "Evelyn's gone, and the HOA's in disarray." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Evelyn had connections, Daniel. People in high places who benefited from her schemes. They might not be ready to let go of their power." That evening, Marcus and I began digging deeper into Evelyn's past. We combed through old records, financial statements, and emails we'd obtained during the court case. What we found was shocking. Evelyn had been part of a larger network of developers, politicians, and business owners who had been manipulating land deals in Willowbrook for years. One name kept popping up: Victor Langston, a wealthy real estate mogul with ties to several controversial projects in the area. He had been a silent partner in the hotel project, and it seemed he had a lot to lose now that the deal had fallen through. "This goes deeper than we thought," Marcus said, his voice low. "Langston's not the type to let a little thing like a court ruling stop him." A few days later, I received a visit from an unexpected source. A young woman named Rachel Bennett, a former assistant to Evelyn Harper, showed up at the farm. She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder as she approached the house. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to talk to you. It's about Evelyn and Victor Langston." I invited her inside, and over a cup of tea, Rachel revealed what she knew. "Evelyn wasn't working alone," she said. "Langston was pulling the strings. He's the one who really wanted your land. The hotel was just the beginning. He has plans, big plans for Willowbrook." Rachel explained that Langston had been buying up land in the area for years, using shell companies and front men to hide his involvement. His ultimate goal was to turn Willowbrook into a sprawling commercial development, erasing its rural character and displacing longtime residents. "He's not going to stop," Rachel said. "Not until he gets what he wants." With Rachel's information, Marcus and I began building a new case against Langston. We reached out to other landowners in the area, many of whom had been pressured into selling their properties under dubious circumstances. Slowly, a picture began to emerge of a man who would stop at nothing to achieve his vision. But Langston wasn't going to let us expose him without a fight. One night, as I was working in the barn, I heard the sound of an engine outside. I stepped out to investigate and found a black SUV parked at the edge of the property. Two men in dark clothing were standing nearby, watching me. "Can I help you?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. The men didn't respond. Instead, they got back into the SUV and drove off, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. The intimidation tactics only strengthened our resolve. Claire and I organized a community meeting, inviting everyone in Willowbrook to come together and discuss the threats we were facing. To our surprise, the turnout was overwhelming. Farmers, business owners, and families packed the community center, their faces a mix of anger and determination. "We've been pushed around for too long," I said, addressing the crowd. "But we're not going to let them take our homes, our land, or our way of life. Together, we can stand up to Langston and anyone else who tries to take what's ours." The room erupted in applause, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. We weren't just fighting for our farm anymore. We were fighting for the soul of Willowbrook. The battle against Langston came to a head at a public hearing where he was seeking approval for a new development project. Marcus and I presented our evidence, exposing his corrupt practices and the harm they would cause to the community. The room was tense as Langston took the stand, his cold eyes scanning the crowd. But we had one final card to play. Rachel Bennett, now under witness protection, testified against Langston, revealing the full extent of his schemes. The room was silent as she spoke, her words painting a picture of greed and manipulation. In the end, Langston's project was denied, and he was forced to step down from his position of power. The victory was bittersweet, as we knew the fight wasn't truly over. But for now, Willowbrook was safe. As the dust settled, life on the farm began to return to normal. The wheat fields were thriving, and the community was stronger than ever. Claire and I stood on the porch one evening, watching the sunset. "We did it," she said, squeezing my hand. "We did," I replied. "But this isn't the end. We'll always have to be vigilant, to protect what's ours." She nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "And we will. Together." As the first stars appeared in the night sky, I felt a sense of peace. The fight had been long and hard, but it had been worth it. The farm was more than just land. It was a legacy, a symbol of resilience, and a reminder that even the smallest voices can make a difference when they stand together. And as the wind rustled through the wheat fields, I knew that my grandfather would be proud. The legacy he had fought so hard to protect would live on, not just in the land, but in the hearts of those who dared to stand up for what was right. The victory against Victor Langston was a turning point for Willowbrook, but it came at a cost. The farm was safe, the community was united, and Langston's empire had crumbled. Yet, as I stood in the quiet of the barn, the weight of everything we'd been through pressed down on me. The fight had taken its toll, not just on the land, but on us. Claire and I had spent months battling forces that seemed insurmountable, and now, in the calm after the storm, I couldn't help but wonder, what came next? Life on the farm slowly returned to normal. The wheat fields swayed in the breeze, their golden stalks a testament to the resilience of the land. The community, once fractured by fear and greed, now stood together, stronger than ever. But beneath the surface, tensions lingered. Langston's allies were still out there, and whispers of retaliation began to circulate. One evening, as Claire and I sat on the porch, she broke the silence. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. I sighed, staring out at the horizon. "I don't know. Langston's gone, but people like him don't just disappear. They adapt. They find new ways to fight." Claire reached for my hand, her touch grounding me. "Then we'll adapt too. We've come this far, Daniel. We're not giving up now." A few weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize, and the contents sent a chill down my spine. The letter claimed that a distant relative of Langston's was contesting the court's decision, arguing that the land had been improperly seized and demanding a new hearing. "This can't be real," Claire said, her voice shaking as she read the letter. "They're just trying to scare us." But I knew better. Langston's network was vast, and his allies were determined to reclaim what they saw as theirs. We couldn't afford to let our guard down. As we prepared for the possibility of another legal battle, Rachel Bennett returned to Willowbrook. She had been in hiding since testifying against Langston, but now she had new information that could change everything. "Langston's not done," she said, her voice urgent as we sat in the kitchen. "He's been working behind the scenes, pulling strings. He's got people in the county government, the courts, everywhere. And now he's coming after you." Rachel handed me a folder filled with documents. Inside were records of secret meetings, financial transactions, and plans for a new development project, one that would dwarf the hotel in scale and impact. He's planning to turn Willowbrook into a corporate hub, Rachel explained. Factories, warehouses, the works. And he's willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. The news of Langston's plan spread quickly through Willowbrook, and the community's unity began to fracture. Some saw the development as an opportunity, a chance for jobs and economic growth. Others, like me, saw it as a threat to everything we held dear. At a town hall meeting, tensions boiled over. Arguments erupted between those who supported the project and those who opposed it. Claire and I tried to keep the peace, but it was clear that Langston's influence was still strong. "We can't let them divide us," I said, addressing the crowd. "This isn't just about land or money. It's about who we are as a community. If we let them take this from us, we lose more than just our homes. We lose our identity." The room fell silent, and for a moment, I thought we might find common ground. But then a voice from the back shouted, "You're just scared of change." The comment stung, but it also made me realize something. This fight wasn't just about stopping Langston. It was about proving that there was another way, a way to grow without losing what made Willowbrook special. The legal battle that followed was grueling. Langston's lawyers were relentless, and the case dragged on for months. But we had something they didn't: the truth. With Rachel's help, we uncovered evidence of bribery, fraud, and environmental violations that exposed Langston's plans for what they were: a reckless grab for power and profit. The final hearing was held on a crisp autumn morning. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. Marcus and I presented our case, laying out the evidence piece by piece. Langston's lawyers fought back with every trick in the book, but in the end, the truth prevailed. The judge ruled in our favor, declaring Langston's plans illegal and ordering a permanent halt to the development project. The room erupted in cheers, but I felt no sense of triumph, only relief. With the legal battle finally over, life in Willowbrook began to heal. The community came together to rebuild, and new initiatives were launched to protect the land and support local businesses. Claire and I worked with our neighbors to create a sustainable development plan, one that honored the past while embracing the future. One evening, as we stood on the porch watching the sunset, Claire turned to me with a smile. "We did it," she said. "We saved Willowbrook." I nodded, but my thoughts were elsewhere. "It's not just about saving it," I said. "It's about making sure it thrives. For us, for our kids, for everyone who comes after us." Claire squeezed my hand. "And we will. Together." Years later, the farm was thriving. The wheat field stretched as far as the eye could see, and the barn had been restored to its former glory. Claire and I had turned the farm into a community hub, hosting workshops and events that brought people together. Our daughter, Emma, now a teenager, had taken a keen interest in the farm. She spent her afternoons helping with the harvest, her laughter echoing through the fields. One day, as we worked side by side, she turned to me with a serious expression. "Dad," she said, "do you think we'll ever have to fight like that again?" I paused, considering her question. "I don't know, Emma. But if we do, we'll be ready. Because this land, this community, it's worth fighting for." She nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "Then I'll fight too." As I watched her walk back to the house, I felt a sense of peace. The fight had been long and hard, but it had been worth it. The farm was more than just land. It was a legacy, a symbol of resilience, hope, and the power of standing together. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the fields, I knew that the seeds we had planted, both in the soil and in the hearts of those who called Willowbrook home, would grow into something beautiful, something lasting, something that would endure for generations to come. This final part of the story brings the narrative full circle, resolving the central conflicts while leaving room for hope and growth. It emphasizes the importance of community, resilience, and the enduring power of standing up for what's right. The story ends on a note of optimism, with the promise of a brighter future for Willowbrook and its people. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story on Store of Good Stories. If this story touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to hit like and share the video to spread this positive message to more people. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the meaningful stories we share every week. Your support is the biggest motivation for Store of Good Stories to keep bringing heartfelt and valuable stories to you. See you in the next video.